Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon everyone. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be continuing our SAT math prep series with this question on the screen, which says I minus 2 multiplied by I plus 3. Of course, I minus 2 in bracket as well as I plus 3 in bracket divided by 2I equals what? Where I is equals to the square root of -1. So the first thing we notice about this question, because we're given I equals square root of -1, we immediately understand that I is not a variable, but I is the symbol for an imaginary number. So now that we have that information down, the next thing we have to do is for us to start solving, right? So the first thing you do is to just rewrite the question like I always do. I minus 2 and I plus 3, right, divided by 2I. So the numerator would involve us to multiply the two information in parentheses, and to do that we have to use the FOIL method, where we're going to multiply the information in the firsts, and then the outers, then the inners, and then the lasts of the stuff in the numerator. So the reason why we're going to use a FOIL is, even though the I value is basically an imaginary number, we're going to pretend like it's a variable and we're going to do a binomial expansion. But instead of us having like x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 3, we're going to have the value of I, even though I is not actually a variable but an imaginary number. That's how we think through problems like this. So you have, when we FOIL this, we have the first terms in each one of the information in bracket is I. So the first one I multiplied by the other I here, plus the second one information is the outers that we're going to look at. So what is the outers in the first bracket and the outers in the second bracket when you look at both brackets as a whole? So we have I multiplied by positive 3. So that's that, plus what is the innermost information? The innermost information is the information that is innermost in comparison to like the entire bracket. And what we see is that for the first bracket, we have -2 to be what is innermost. And for the second bracket, we have I to be what is the innermost, plus -2 times positive 3, because now we're dealing with the last information in each one of the brackets. So that would be -2 multiplied by positive 3. So all of that information divided by the denominator 2I. So then to work on the numerator, we have I squared plus 3I minus 2I minus 6 divided by 2I. So what you end up with is I squared plus 3I blah blah. Well, we're still gonna keep up with our I squared. So you have positive 3I minus 2I minus 6. So that's the same thing as saying positive I minus 6 divided by 2I. Now, before we go on to continue this question, I want to first of all show you a way to simplify this, because this is definitely not simplified and it almost makes the numerator look like a quadratic equation, and that's not what we're trying to do here. So to be able to do this, we have I squared plus I minus 6. Well, guess what this is? I squared is the same thing as the square root of -1 all squared. So plus I minus 6 divided by 2I. So the square root of -1 all squared is the same thing as, let's go to the next page. So for example, if I say the square root of x all squared is the same thing as x, right? Raised to the power of 1/2. Raising something to the power of 1/2 is the same thing as saying the square root of that thing, and then squaring that, so you have squared. But guess what? The two powers are gonna multiply, so you have x 2 divided by 2, so you just have x. So basically, whenever you square a square root, you're just gonna get the answer that is actually inside of the square root. So just doing this, we're gonna apply this same understanding, of course, to the previous page. So you have the square root of Negative 1 all squared is the same thing as just the information inside of the square root. So you have negative 1 plus I minus 6 divided by 2I. So that would be I minus 7 equals 2I. Now, this is a part that I need to actually teach you guys. From teaching students and just observing SAT problems, I've realized many students feel this part of the test because they actually think, oh my god, this is my answer. Why isn't the answer there? Or they actually pick the wrong answer. But guess what? This is a tricky problem because we have imaginary number in the denominator. And anytime you solve imaginary numbers, you want to make sure that the symbol of I is always in the numerator. If not, there is no point in even giving you the question, because our question has the value of 2I in the denominator. And just working on the numerator is not going to work. You're trying to be smart and find the tricks and the twists in questions. And this is definitely the trick and the twist in the question. We're trying to get rid of the imaginary number I in the denominator. So that's what you start focusing on now. So you have I minus 7 divided by 2I. To be able to get rid of the I value in the denominator, what you can just do is to multiply the top and bottom of the equation by the value of I. And I here, so you have this, this is the bracket, so we can distinguish. So you have I squared minus 7I divided by 2I squared. What you end up with is this, and we're just going to do what we've done earlier on. Remember when I taught you I squared? I squared the same thing as the square root of negative 1 all squared. So we're only interested in what is inside the square root. So therefore, we're going to have negative 1. So basically, I squared is the same thing as negative 1. So negative 1, negative 7I divided by 2 times negative 1. So therefore, our answer would be negative 1, negative 7I divided by negative 2. That is the answer. But because we're mathematicians and we like to make our work very neat and simplified, of course, because you may have a simplified version as a question in your SATs, you can bring out and factor out negative 1. So you bring out a negative and you have 1 plus 7I divided by 2. And you have 1 here, so you cancel out the negatives and you end up with your answer to be 1 over 2 plus 7I over 2. And this is actually the answer to the question, because guess what? We've successfully gotten rid of the I value in the denominator. And I am thankful that you guys stayed to the end of this video. Make sure you watch the other complex number and imaginary number type questions that I have on this channel. And I wish you guys all the best on your SATs, as well as anything that you're studying that made you actually click on this video. So I wish you guys all the very best, and make sure you check the end screen and watch the end of this video so you see what is the next best thing for you guys to watch. Have a good day, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.